What is up guys, TopTierYugioh here, and today I've got an Adventure Virtual World deck profile for you guys. Virtual World has been one of the best meta decks for a while now, due to its ability to perform a laundry list of ever-evolving combos, with the most basic of them being Shinshin plus Chuchi being enough to win games on its own. But now that you can incorporate the Brave engine, you can insulate yourself from hand traps while also giving you more bodies on board to combo with in order to end on even stronger boards. So let's go ahead and get into the list. Starting with the Virtual World engine, we've got 3 copies of Lulu, 3 copies of Gigi, 3 copies of Lao Lao, 3 copies of Lily, 2 copies of NyanNyan, and then for the spells and traps, we got 3 copies of City, 3 copies of Qinlong, 2 copies of Chuchi, and then 1 copy of Xuanwu. And now most of this lineup is pretty standard regardless of which version of Virtual World you're playing. You could be playing Pure, we're playing the Adventure version, you could be playing Sword Soul. You're going to be playing the same Virtual World cards regardless because these are the backbone of the deck. But one thing I will mention is that Kauwloon is so much better in this variant of the deck because of its ability to mill cards to the graveyard. And so you can mill like your Water Enchantress and then use the effect from the graveyard in order to search your Rite and then get those plays going as well. And so this is the standard lineup, but it does work a little bit better in this version versus the others. For the Adventure engine, we've got 3 copies of Water Enchantress, 3 copies of Rite of Adamysir, 1 Fateful Adventure, 1 Griffin Rider, and then 1 Dracoback. I've seen some lists cut the Enchantress and the Rites down to 2, but I think that 3 is the ideal number because you do want to see it in every single hand to, once again, be able to insulate yourself from hand traps, but also to be able to use your excess monsters on board as synchro material. And so Griffin Rider being level 7 and the token being level 3 is very relevant because Lulu or NyanNyan, like a level 3 tuner plus Griffin Rider equals Baron, and Baron's extremely powerful. And then with the token being level 4, a level 6 synchro such as your Lao Lao also gets you to a level 10, a level 3 tuner gets you to 7, so you can use like Yazi and other very powerful level 7 synchro monsters. And so just having the extra bodies on board is really big. But one of the other reasons that I think this variant is the best version of Virtual World right now is due to how free it makes your Virtual World cards, because both Qinlong and Xuanwu require you to discard from your hand to the graveyard, and sometimes it's tricky discarding your Virtual World cards themselves, but with the Adventure engine, you can discard your Rite and get the graveyard effect. And in that same regard, you can use Fateful Adventure, which also requires a discard, to discard things like Qinlong, Xuanwu, NyanNyan, and other things that you maybe want engraved for the Virtual World cards. And so there's a lot of synergy between these 2 archetypes, and there are a lot of hands to where you're pretty much getting everything for free. And so like you'll start with a Rite or an Enchantress, get the Fateful Adventurer, and then for Fateful Adventure, you're gonna like discard Qinlong. And then you can use Qinglong's effect to add something to hand and then discard. You'll discard the Dracoback that you search, and then Dracoback can just equip to the token. And so you're getting all of these discards for free instead of them being minuses like they usually are. Well, I guess they're not usually minuses, but you guys get what I'm saying. And now to finish out the main deck, we've got 3 copies of Triple Tactics Talents, 3 copies of Emergency Teleport, 1 Snow, and then 1 Token Collector. And so starting from left to right, I decided to go with Triple Tactics Talents over Forbidden Droplets. Because while Droplets is better going second for sure, being able to break boards, I felt that with so many hand traps being played in the current metagame, I wanted more cards that were also useful going first. And while Droplets can be used going first, you can set it as a defensive card. Triple Tactics Talents can draw you into more of your engine or help you break apart your opponent's hand. It's significantly better going first, and while it is also significantly worse going second, I do think it is still good enough in that when you have access to your engine, sometimes you can just play through Disruption anyways, as long as you're not getting locked out of your extra deck by Scythe or a Lance. Well, even Lancia isn't terrible to play against, you can still make plays, but I think it just comes down to seeing more of your Virtual War cards or your Adventure cards, and Triple Tactics actually allows you to do that. 3 copies of Emergency Teleport, that's just standard. And then finally we have the Token Collector and the Snow. Snow is standard, you can send it to the graveyard with Beatrice, but a lot of builds are playing Scythe or a Lancia in this final deck spot. I decided to go with a Token Collector because it felt like the most versatile option in this scenario. And so with Scythe, it requires you to combo, and typically what you would do is you dump Scythe to the graveyard with Beatrice, and then you use Baron to revive the Scythe on your opponent's turn. So you have to pretty much go through your full combo in order to utilize Scythe, and then going second, it's not very good at all, or if you get stopped, not good at all. You don't really want it in your deck, or especially not in your hand. Lancia is a little bit better because, once again, if you're going first, it's going to require a full combo to get to, but going second, you can draw it and still use it to disrupt your opponents, and it's very impactful in those matchups. But then Token Collector is like all the way on the other end to where like you don't need to go full combo to get access to Token Collector. You can just make Beatrice, and Beatrice can be 2 disruptions between the Token Collector and the Snow. And like just Beatrice alone, not even full combo. And then going second, Token Collector is also a hand trap. It can be used as disruption. And so while it's not quite as impactful as Lancia, it is still usable. And so I feel like there's like a range you can go through from like Scythe, which is the least usable but the highest impact, Lancia, which is kind of in the middle, and then Token Collector, which maybe isn't as impactful, but it's usable in more situations. And I decided to go with the more versatility. However, the other options are in the side deck anyways. And so that wraps up the main deck, and one thing you're going to notice is that I'm not playing any hand traps in the main deck outside of the 1 copy of Token Collector. And the main reason for that is when going first, you need to see as many of your combo cards as possible. You cannot afford to draw, 1, and especially not 2 non-combo cards, especially like low impact hand traps. If you're opening with non-combo cards, they better be winning you the game. But playing like an Ash Blossom or something is not going to do that, because every single non-engine card you draw takes away from your combo. And then also, given the number of negates that decks are currently generating before even getting to their main plays, I really feel that playing a single hand trap or a small number of hand traps is just not significant enough. It's better to allocate those deck spots to cards that will be more impactful in limited quantities, such as Triple Tactics talents. Just seeing 1 Triple Tactics talent can be very good when you're going first when your opponent has a hand trap, which they are very likely to have in this current format. And I think this is exactly why decks like Phantom Knights, Virtual World, Drytron, and other similar decks are playing little to no hand traps. Maybe a couple of Lancias at most, because it's also a lingering effect that you can use in the standby phase before they even activate their Enchantresses. But for the most part, you're not playing that many interactive hand traps. It's like even if you had space for 6, 7, 8 hand traps, it's not worth playing it because you're only going to draw 1, and that 1 hand trap only trades through Griffin. You're still going to get Scythe locked. But again, that wraps up the main deck. Moving on to the extract, we're going to start with the synchro monsters. We play 10 of them, the first and most important of which being Shin. Then we've got our Baron, our Sovereign Supreme, Crystal Wing, and Zulkin. These are our interactive synchro monsters, the ones that we're usually ending our board on, and these are what we use to stop our opponents. And then after that, we've got Charge Warrior for extending our plays, and then we have Juju, Coral Dragon, Vermilion Dragon Mech, and Yazi for breaking boards. Yazi is sort of a weird one because you can use it going second to break boards. It can't be targeted, so it's really good going second, but also going first it can be powerful because you can summon it to your side of the field, destroy it with a Baron, and then use it to summon out one of your worms from decks, such as your Lily. And then Lily can be that virtual world that you have on board in order to start playing with your virtual world engine, and so that can be a very powerful play. Some other synchros that I did consider were the new Sinister Supreme, the Sword Soul card. I thought about playing Muddy Mud Dragon and then like a fusion monster, and then I also really wanted to play the Math Mech synchro. But the reasons I didn't play these, especially the Math Mech synchros, it felt like they just didn't come up in enough scenarios, and they also get outed too easily by the other things that are in the format, such as like Forbidden Droplets. And so, or I guess Droplets doesn't deal with the Math Mech, but Access Code is really easy to summon, and Access Code just attacks over it. Droplets does deal with whatever you would be summoning with the Muddy Button Dragon, whether it be Dragoon or Caliga. And then Sovereign Supreme, or Sinister Supreme, powerful, great interaction, deals burn damage, but I felt that there weren't very many hands where I was summoning like, where I would want this plus another interaction, and I felt that on its own, Sovereign Supreme is maybe a little bit better than Sinister Supreme, or Sinister Sovereign. This one's better. The water one's better than the fire one, I think. It also works better with the Virtual World deck because it's super easy to trigger this one. Because you can trigger it with like Snow, you can trigger it with any of your Virtual World traps. Very easy to do on your opponent's turn, allowing you to get a banish from their field and graveyard. Another thing that I was heavily considering was a second copy of Baron. That does actually come up in certain hands, not as much as some of the others, or not as much as the other cards in the extra deck, but the second Baron does come up, especially when you're trying to go for the Scythe lock, because one thing that kind of stinks about it is you have to like get rid of your Baron, which is usually your negate, in order to summon the Scythe, and in doing so it opens up the Scythe into other disruption, whether it be like, you know, whatever they have to negate a Scythe. There are plenty of cards that do it, and having to lose the Baron in order to summon the Scythe opens you up for that. But if you can end on double Baron with the Scythe in graveyard, then you have that protection on top of it, making you just that much more resilient. And while you do have Crystal Wing, which can sometimes serve a similar role, it's a lot harder to end on like Zulkin, Crystal Wing, Beatrice, Baron than it is to end on double Baron, Beatrice. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. If you've got the extra Baron, might be worth testing it out. But that's it for the Synchro monsters. And then for the Xyz monsters, we have one copy of Beatrice, absolutely incredible card, one copy of Zeus, one Fan, one Breaksword, and then one M7. All of these are very, very useful, but one thing that you're going to notice about this Xyz lineup is that I'm actually not playing any of like the Xyz monsters that rank up on top of the other Xyz monsters. And the reason for that being, I feel that with the main ones that you're summoning, you're often using the effect. And so when you use a Breaksword, you're using the effect to destroy something on your opponent's side of the board, and then the one material remaining in the Breaksword itself will be the two materials under your Zeus. Same with M7. The only exception is Fan because it detaches both of its cards. However, you know, hey, there's not enough space to play the Gaia Dragon, and I'm not taking something else out for this one scenario. Like if you're resolving a Fan, it's good enough. But even without the extra materials, Zeus can be incredibly impactful. And then honestly, Beatrice is maybe the best card in the extra deck. It's just such an insane card, and being able to send the Snow and the Token Collector gives you two forms of interruption from one card. It's also a quick effect, and so if you do get nibbed, you can always just dump Snow immediately and still have that Snow as disruption. So it puts disruptions in different zones, not just on the field, and again, that makes the deck a lot more flexible, more versatile, and just a stronger combo deck in general. It is what gives you access to Scythe and Lancia. Like Beatrice, I think you really could argue Beatrice is the best card in the extra deck, which is crazy to say when your extra deck also has like Baron, Zulkin, Shin, and so many other great cards as well. And now finally for the side deck, it is mostly standard. We've got 3 copies of Dimensional Barrier, 3 copies of Cosmic Cyclone, 3 copies of Forbidden Droplets. Once again, I mentioned that droplets could also be used in the main deck. I feel like you definitely need it somewhere in your list, because you just do not want to be losing the Scythe lock, or just huge boards in general. I mean, you can play through the interactive boards, but it's really those interactive cards that you need to negate, besides the Lancias. If, well, I guess you can't negate Lancia, but the sides, the barrier statues, all of that stuff you have to negate. And then, let's see, we also are playing our own uninteractive cards, such as our own Lancia and Scythe. And then finally, we're playing 1 copy of Shaddoll Aerial, and then 1 Farfa, right? Weird. But, I think most of it's pretty standard except for these 2 cards. I really wanted more utility out of Beatrice. Again, I think Beatrice is the best card in the extra deck. And one thing that I want, if possible, is to get 2 interactions out of it. And so obviously one of them is going to be Snow, but it's really that second one that depends on the matchup. And in some cases, yeah, Token Collector can be good, but in other cases you might want to deal with your opponent's graveyard. And so if you're playing a PK matchup, Token Collector is fine, but you know, dealing with all of the stuff in graveyard is very, very important as well. Farfa too, like being able to just get 2 monster disruptions off of it, like 2 things against the board. And so if let's say you're playing against Adventure Tinyi, all they're trying to do is get 2 monsters on board. Beatrice can send Snow that gets rid of 1, it can also send Farfa that gets rid of 2. If you've got a Supreme on board, Farfa triggers Supreme, that gets rid of 3, plus something in their graveyard. And so again, Farfa turns Beatrice into this huge powerhouse. And while there might be better cards for this spot, I definitely encourage you guys to try out a Farfa and an Aerial, just to see how you like it. I've been having fun with it and I'm still testing it. Maybe I'll change it in the future, but let me know what you guys think about this. But really, honestly, with Virtual World, the main thing is just to watch the format and make sure that you're making the correct meta calls, because you don't have that many flex spots. Like every single Virtual World deck plays the same Virtual World engine for the most part. You only got maybe 5 or 6 flex spots that can really push you over the edge if you're choosing the correct cards, but it comes down to understanding the format. And if you do want to stay up to date with the current metagame, check out the metagame discussion right here on your screen, where I discuss all of the current dynamics of the game and what we can do to optimize for it. And let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.